There's a lot of craziness going out there in the world.
Yeah.
You do not want to be tied to somebody monetarily, even if they're like a good person. If your values aren't in alignment, then
Yeah.
there's going to be a conflict there.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Family Man Building a Brand podcast. So today, this is a special episode because we have our first female on the podcast. Ralph and I were just
Whoop,
talking,
whoop.
and exactly, that's a big round of applause. We have our first
Let's
female on
go.
the podcast, and we're going to have a different perspective to family life and entrepreneurship. So I'm going to introduce Nicole and we're going to get the whole show started. So Nicole is a real estate investor, a wife, and a mom of two beautiful daughters, and also a 9-to-5 entrepreneur. She is the founder of Noirvest Holdings, where she holds and builds her multifamily real estate portfolio and is extremely motivated to grow her portfolio and transition from residential multifamily to commercial multifamily. So welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank
Welcome
you.
in.
Thank you so much for
course.
having me. I'm excited. Congrats on the podcast. Like I just
Thank
hearing
you.
good things. And I just know this is gonna blow up and be,
Amen to
super
that. Thank you.
impactful.
Thank you.
Amen
Cool,
to
man.
that.
So
Thank you.
what
Thank
we
you.
like to do is, just to get this show started, people are probably thinking, who's Nicole? Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into a great conversation.
Okay, perfect. Well, you gave the high level overview right there. I started my real estate investing journey in 2015 is my first solo purchase. I had some ups and downs in my journey before then, which a lot of people will, and you just have to keep pushing through and pivot and find what works for you. And so my first step into the multifamily space, which is where I always wanted to be, but I thought that had to come later down the road, like later in my portfolio after had years and years of experience and all these other things and like common misbeliefs. You don't have to start with single family. My first was a multifamily house hack. So I lived in one of the
Okay.
units, rented the other two. And I think that is a fantastic opportunity if you live in a market where there are multifamily buildings, and that's possible. If you're willing to sacrifice, some people think living with your tenants is horrible. They would never want to do that, blah, blah, blah. Yes, tenants, there's ups and downs, but you learn hands-on how to be the property manager, how to be the contractor, how to deal with tenant relations, be a people person, follow rules, like make sure the property is maintained. Like when you make that first step from renting into ownership, it's really a huge wake up call because most of the time something breaks, you call your landlord, like, oh, we got to fix that. And
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, I'm the landlord. I have to fix it. Right. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
me.
Yep.
Right. So that's like when that first stuff started happening to me, I was just like, oh my God, I actually have to do this myself. But the other side of it was like, I can actually do whatever I want with the property. Like I can build something over here. I can put a wall up over here. The landlord's not gonna be mad if I do something, if I change the bathroom or the kitchen layout, or I can do whatever I want aesthetically and not even functionally, whatever. But anyway, that's a long intro into the house hacking part of it. But I just think it's a great way to build wealth and experience hands on. And so after holding that property for a few years, the appreciation was phenomenal. I was able to refinance and pull out a bunch of equity, and I used that equity is what got me started. Like I got a mentor and coach in multifamily space, and then I used part of it as a down payment on my first commercial multifamily building. And I had a
Okay.
joint venture partner for that one. And then I also, like I started one of those whole life insurance bank on yourself type of policies. I bought like some silver. Like I just like I'm a big believer in spreading around your, capital in as many buckets as possible to kind
Okay.
of squeeze all the juice out of it. So literally that's kind of how I got started and started with the refi and roll strategy.
Well, that's loaded. And we're going to unpack all of that today because I think the audience is hearing a lot of stuff and most people probably don't know what a joint venture is, the whole life insurance. So we'll definitely, but
Right.
before we get there, I think we always like to take it back because I think the whole point of this is telling a story. And we want to get the audience to really get to know who you are because I think it helps also with their mindset, but for them to understand how you became who you are. So going back, kind of tell us a little bit more about where you grew up and what was your childhood like.
Okay. Okay, I got that. So yes, I am not the person who should own commercial real estate and have businesses and joint ventures. That If you're seeing this, you see the people that we are, the ethnicity that we are, like the color of our skin. But even economically, I didn't come from a white collar or above kind of household, right? I grew up in a 7-person household, my mom, dad, and 5 children, but we had one income, my mom's. So my dad had health issues and he could not work for as long as I can remember. I probably remember like one instance when I was really small where he had like a car shop. And other than that, the rest of my childhood, he didn't work. He got disability, right? My mom worked 2 or 3 jobs for that entire time. And I remember us as kids actually having to help go to these other jobs with her so that she could finish one job in time to get to the other job in time. So that's just something like I grew up with. We didn't have name brand anything. So I remember one time, like when I was very young, my dad had like a car shop at some point. But other than that, my entire memory of childhood, he was not working, he was on disability, and my mom was working 2 to 3 jobs. And some of those jobs, us kids, she would bring along to help her finish one job in time to be done so she could get to the other job in one time. And so it was always a stretching of the dollar. It was always that I didn't feel like I was, wasn't eating off the floor, like I wasn't digging in trash for food. So yes, you can always point to something that could be a worse situation. I was never homeless, you know what I mean? Those things, like my
Yeah.
parents really shielded us a lot from the financial aspects of it. But this is all reflection as an adult looking back at what the childhood was, is that we didn't have name brand stuff. We went to Payless for shoes, went to Foreman Mills, was like a discount store for clothes. We never saw movies the weekend that it came out. You'd have to wait 6 months because we go to the dollar movie that was down the road, you know? So
Yeah.
things like that, I just thought my mom just didn't ever like to spend money. And like if you bought a $20 shirt, that was too much. She would blow up. Like I got in so much trouble one time when I was older, like a teenager, but I was working at a retail store. I got in so much trouble for using my employee discount to get a shirt that and was 50 something dollars, but cost me 20 something dollars. And I just got so much trouble because I spent too much money for that shirt. So it's one
Wow.
of those things, like, I have a lot of, lack of money mindset, like money abundance, that kind of thing has been something hard for me to work through because that's so ingrained into my psyche from my childhood. So yes, I definitely didn't start like that's why I feel like house hacking is such a great strategy to start with because you can get in with
Makes
the
sense.
FHA or NACA or one of these other low down payment assistant programs, but you can also then live for free. So you're attacking on both sides, like putting less money out of pocket to get started and then also potentially living for free and reducing one of your largest monthly bills, which is your housing expense. So I
Okay.
just think all around and build wealth at the same time with the equity.
Dope.
So
Dope. Makes
Man,
sense.
well, hey, it was key. First of all, Nicole, having you on this episode is really dope, and for you to tell me your mother's dynamic, it has me intrigued. Like, you know, because it's rare. The societal norm is the man go out, they hunt, the woman stays at home, takes care of the home, and the man provides that one income for the 5 kids. I think that's how all the stories similar to yours normally have go. But now in your case, it was your mother. It was opposite. Your mother was out hunting because your father wasn't able to, and now you are who you are within your family, and you're the one building this brand and things of that sort. I'm intrigued. What role does your husband play in building or your business slash brand? Is it similar to the dynamic you were raised in and saw all your life?
actually, that's a great question. And thank you for even making that similarity because I've thought about that as well. Like, that's just shaping who I am as a person now. I don't do the cooking. I hate doing the cleaning at home. Like, my mom did do that, but because she had to, but I'm just
Yeah.
like busy with my job and the thing, all the stuff. So I'm not a typical household kind of, structured woman. And I hate that way that sounds, but I have no other
Yeah.
way to frame a reference to describe that. But yes, now my husband, he does still work a full-time W-2 job. So he does still we honestly still split most bills, and I want to say all the bills 50-50. So we still have we've had our separate bank accounts for the longest time. We still have our separate bank accounts, but we only do a joint account for the household joint expenses. and we split that 50-50. No matter how much else is he's bringing in, a lot of my other business income, as I'm still building rental income and business stuff and other ventures, I still have that in those business accounts, and I don't always take normal withdrawals from there because I'm still building that up, and I in case I need it for some other business expense or growth or marketing or things like that. So I don't really touch that right now. There are plans to do that in the future, but what he's doing more so than financial is the household support and the support of me being able to be out the house. Like on top of my W-2, sometimes after work, I have to stay late so I can record my podcast episodes or so that I can get on calls, or I'm gone for a weekend because I'm going to a real estate conference. And I try to limit that travel as much as possible, not only so I'm not leaving my husband with the kids all the time, because I still want it to be like a fairish dynamic with that. But I also, my kids are still at the age that they're young enough that they want mommy. And so if I'm gone out the house for too long, too many days in a row, like one of my mentorship groups I'm a part of is having a cruise next February. And I really want to go, but it's a week long cruise, like a 7 day cruise. That is long. That's a long time. And even though my kids will be a little bit older, but they're not that much older. And I just feel like that's too long of a time period. I might just have to miss it, because if it was like a 3-day weekend cruise, then I can swing that. You know what I mean? So it's sacrifices on my side, trying not to be out of the house too much, but doing just enough where I can still meet with people, meet and mingle, do the things that I need to do and grow. And my husband, in the meantime, does a lot of like, he'll order bulk. He's like in charge of ordering bulk toilet paper and soap and wash it, laundry detergent and stuff like that, because if it was up to me, I'd be like, "Oh, we got 1 roll left. Let me go to the store." Like, or we just ran out. Let me go to, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't realize it until I'm in the middle of using it and it's gone. And I'm like, what happened? We didn't order nothing. So if it wasn't for him keeping up with a lot of those different aspects, we both are not really chefs, but luckily we have his mother-in-law, or his, not his mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, his mother
Yeah.
is like a big cooker. And so they're always cooking. She's cooking for the kids, but she cooks, Caribbeans, they cook a lot of big portions, family size portions. So even though it's for the kids, it's enough for us too. So we survive. So it's one of those things. Listen, it definitely takes the village. And without everyone being involved, it will be really hard for me to be able to shake and move like I need to, even though I feel like sometimes I'm pulling back.
Oh,
Man,
so you
you
do have
said
a
it.
supportive network. Yeah.
You said it, it takes a village. I mean, and obviously, I would like to think it's an African proverb. I don't even know, but it takes a village to raise a child. Because, I
Right.
mean, I think for Ralph can attest to that. I mean, for him,
Yeah.
mother-in-law or
Yeah.
his mom with 3 kids and having, but it sounds like, and I'm gonna ask. I mean, you can give it as short as possible. It sounds like, as you were saying, there was a little bit of guilt in there, which I think for men sometimes is very
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
staying away from the kids. I mean, I know I don't like to stay away from Kenzo, my son, but I don't know. I've never been really put in a position, because I was in that position before he was born. And my wife and I decided, hey, you're not going to do anything that requires you to travel anymore. So I don't really stay away from him for much time. But if I go on weekends, I'm like, do you feel that? Because I don't know. I mean, it sounded like it, but do you actually feel guilt? Because now this is a woman trying to build a brand and
Right.
whatever, where generally or stereotypically men just are like, I got to do what I got to do.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely feel the guilt. And I think, and of course, I'm saying this from a woman's perspective,
Yeah.
but I feel like the guilt on the woman's side is going to be heavier than the guilt on the man's side, because a lot of times, especially when your kids are still young, they're still, they have that unspoken bond with mom. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's something that mom can do, or just the comfort that mom provides. Just, it doesn't have to be that I'm doing anything. They could just be sitting next to me. You saw that my daughter was trying to climb up on
Yeah.
my lap. She didn't need anything. She just wanted to be touching me. And so that kind of thing, I think, like there's been times when they were maybe a little bit younger, but I'm trying to leave to go out to work, and both of them are bawling by the front door, blocking the door so I can't go out because they want me to stay home. And this was like actual W-2 work, not, my
Yeah.
extra stuff. So it's one of those things where definitely there's guilt on the kid side, and there's guilt because I don't want to feel like I'm putting my desire and my business like as an extra responsibility for the household on my husband. Even though he knows that I'm doing it for the family, there's still like that internal guilt I have of not wanting to leave him with too much to do. like that we should be doing the household stuff just
Together.
as equally. Yeah. So, but I'm working on this so that I can have the free time. But right now is the moment when I don't have a lot of extra free time.
Makes
What?
sense. Makes
Hey,
sense.
look. I mean, look, man. Cecil, we got a family woman on the episode. Family woman's building the brand. So I want to unpack some more of this. You know, murky territory questions because she said one thing in regards to the 50-50 on the bills and things of that sort. I want you to really tap in on that, Nicole. And first of all, are you in agreement that things should remain 50-50 as we're building this up? Or is this just something that you rolled into, so you've embraced it and it's okay, but you'd rather it be 70-30, the male paying more and providing and things of that sort? Can you tap in on that a little bit more?
I actually think that the household bills should be in conjunction, like split percentage wise equally with our W-2 income percentage wise. Like whatever
Okay.
percentage of our W-2 income we bring into the household, that's how we should split the bills. I don't want to include my other in outside income yet. Like I said, I'm still building on that. Sometimes I
Okay.
have high, especially with rental properties, you need
Gotta
to
put it
turn a
back
unit
in.
and the quote comes in higher than expected for turns and repairs, and then you just need that money back. So I that money is still in growth mode, and I never know when I'm going to need chunks of it. So I work bills off of W-2 income for the most part. So yes, we're doing 50-50. He actually gets paid a little less than I do. So I would be willing to pay a higher percentage, but he likes the 50-50 cuz he wants to feel like he's contributing, 50% equally. He's the man of the household. I shouldn't have to be giving more. That's his thought process. So the one thing that I do for the household expenses is our house hack. We moved out of there, but the rent, because our unit was, we basically were living for free because the other two units paid for everything.
Okay.
So when we moved out, the rent that we were getting from the unit we rented out that we used to live in, we now use that to subsidize our rent
Okay.
in our
Cool.
new location.
No
So
doubt.
that's what I consistently pull from my other building to help us
Nice.
just with
Okay.
living expenses. So, but otherwise, everything else kind of stays over there. And then all the other bills are with 50-50. But yeah,
And
I
that
would
Okay.
be willing to do the percentage. Yeah.
Okay. One more quote unquote murky question in regards to this is you building the brand and your husband, being involved in that. Do you feel like since you're building something and you've gotten traction, real estate is one of the foundations and pillar of wealth and success in this country. Do you feel like he should put more effort into this wave that you're on right now and this traction that you've gotten? Or is it something where no, he can build on his own and build something separate? I got this and let's build separate things at the same time. Because these are topics that are really prevalent in our community, and it's kind of like 50-50. Some people are saying no, some people are saying yes. So can I hear from you?
Yeah. No, I don't.
All right. We hear that.
No, we have thought about this plenty of times. He's actually the one who took me to my first 3-day seminar, and I signed. It wasn't a 3-day seminar. No, it was a 3-day weekend. He paid for the 3-day weekend tickets. He was going to take his sister, couldn't go, so he took me. We were still dating at the time.
okay.
From there, I signed up for the coaching, and then I just jumped in both feet, and I've been in ever since.
Oh
And he
wow.
kind of fell back like, "Oh,
Okay.
I'm going to, that's not really my thing." I was trying to share all the information and resources because I got upsold to the bigger coaching program, and I still was sharing everything with him. Hey, you want to look at this? You want to do this? You want to do this? And from the beginning, it really wasn't his thing. He didn't really
Okay.
want to do it. So it was like years and years of education that got me to this point now. And he hasn't been doing that. So for me to start with him now, there's a big gap because
Yeah.
he has not been doing, like, he's doing a lot more education. He listens to a ton of podcasts, and he's getting himself there, but he's figuring out what he wants to do. And I think just personality
Okay.
wise, it's not going to be good for us to work together and live together. We
Right.
need to keep some separation there. And I just want to be able to do what I want to do. And at this point, I've been doing it myself for so long. I want to make the decisions and I want to be the boss. Like, if this is my real estate thing over here, please don't block me, man. I got stuff to do.
It's that's interesting because I think
Ladies and
I think
gentlemen,
that
there you go.
mindset is very entrepreneurial
You
because
got
I
it.
think entrepreneurs have this. We kind of sometimes want to be left alone when we're doing things, and I feel it's a gift and a curse because I think the curse being maybe we don't know. Maybe this is just me. Maybe we don't want to be accountable for certain things. I don't know. I mean, I could be right or wrong, but obviously the gift, I mean, of it being like we figure out things ourselves and then we go. So, I mean, but at the end of the day, I think you guys have found a way for him to be supportive. I mean, he took
Yeah.
you there and you ran with it because obviously
Right.
it could be a personality thing as well and that type of stuff. So it makes a lot of sense. Now, going into the real estate part, because you've given a lot of information that I think will help somebody new wanting to go into real estate from that perspective. You mentioned that like your first house that you guys moved into or got, you guys house hacked. Now, how does this whole house hacking thing work? Because a lot of
Right.
people talk about it, and I mean, I know a little bit about it, and I tell my younger brother, I'm like, yeah, you're not married, you don't have kids, don't do things maybe the way we did. Where I mean, I got married and then we bought a house. So for you, you could do that house hack. So if you were talking with somebody like him, how do
Yeah.
you explain that house hack? And I also know you mentioned like an FHA knock, and so explain that process to someone who didn't know, so that it makes
Yeah.
sense to them.
Okay. So, high overview, house hacking is buying a residential multifamily property. Residential multifamily is anything 4 units and less.
Okay.
So, basically, two,
Okay.
3, or 4 units. Once you hit five, you're now in the commercial space. You can't get the same type of homeowner down payment programs and things like that because it's commercial now.
Okay.
But up to 4 units, you can still take advantage of first time home buyer loans like FHA. And then there's the other program, NACA, that helps you do 0% down and a very low interest rate. There are some other rules that it's like a lot of hoops to get through to get approved for NACA. I've heard, I have not done that. But you also have to stay in that house for a certain time frame, like year wise. So if you
Okay.
plan to like jump around, like NACA might not be the best,
Okay.
loan product for you. But in any case, so you buy a house with FHA is 3.5% of the purchase price that you put
Oh,
down. There might be some extra fees with the loan processing part, and some people don't like FHA for that reason. But it also can be
hey, beat
rolled loan.
20%.
It beats 20% even with the fees. Exactly. And those fees can be rolled into the loan and
Okay.
amortized over the 30 years. So
Okay.
then it's not like you have to come out of that with
Okay.
out of pocket for that. So as an example, I live in New York City. New York City is extremely expensive. The biggest, expense for me to cut out was my housing expense, right?
Yeah.
My three-family house, which I thought I was not going to be able to get qualified for, was $500,000. And I only had to come out of pocket 17,000 and some
Wow.
change,
Man.
which sounds like a lot. To this day, I don't know how I saved the whole 17,000 because I didn't have a lot of money saved. I was living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was some from my retirement account. If you take money, I piecemealed the down
Okay.
payment just to let people know.
Okay.
You could
Okay.
take some money from your retirement account even if you're still at your current job. So you take it as a loan, not as a withdrawal. But that loan, if you're purchasing a property, they let you take that loan out with a 10-year amortization. So the payment will be lower.
Okay.
Amortization is just the amount of time that your loan payments are spread out over,
Yeah.
whether
Okay.
it's 10, 20, 30 years. For people who don't know what amortization, the longer the amortization, the lower that monthly payment is going to be for you. So I took some from my FHA. I mean, not from my FHA, from my retirement account. I borrowed some from a friend and then just paid her back, like maybe 5,000 I borrowed from a friend and paid her back the month after we closed. It was supposed to be a gift. She filled out the gift paperwork, but I knew I was going to pay her back. We had a side agreement. So I think statute of limitations is probably gone. But and then I had some from a little bit of savings. So it literally was just piecemeal together to get to that 17,000. Yeah, and you put that down and I don't know, I feel like there's something else. Oh, the $500,000. Some people will be very scared about that number.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
I first was looking for property, I was approved for $250,000 or $200,000, actually 200,000 flat. So I wasn't looking at $500,000 properties. But just so you know, when you go and get a loan approval, you have to specifically ask for multifamily and give the loan person the estimate of what the rent is going to be for the type of product that you're looking for, because they will take 75% of the rental income and add it to your W-2 income to help you approve for the higher amount. And so that's why I was able to get approved for more, because in a 3-family property, I had 2 3-bedroom apartments and a 2-bedroom apartment. So I told them I was going to live in the 2-bedroom apartment and I was going to rent out the 2 3-bedroom apartments because I wanted the extra income from those 2 3-bedrooms. So the 3-bedroom, since I don't think at the time, maybe a little less than $2,000 a month. So 75%, and that was from each apartment. So that's $4,000 a month. You could take 75% of that and add it to my income and help improve me, like get my DTI, good and give me my income level needed to be able to afford the $500,000 loan. That's why people who are tenants and they think landlords just have all this extra money. Like, no, I got approved based off of the rent. If I don't get
They're
rent,
paying.
I can't afford the mortgage. Like,
Yeah.
I can't just afford it off my own W-2. So I know that was kind of lengthy, but for people who want to get
Hey,
started in house
details.
hacking, and you can also do this concept with a single family. I've heard of it, but now the difference is now you're living inside the same unit. So whether maybe you want to put locks on your bedroom door, you have to share the
Oh,
kitchen and
okay.
refrigerator and things like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And you're only going to get approved off of your income because the other units are not separate to rent, honestly.
Okay. Okay.
So
I mean,
there's
that's
different ways to do it. Yeah.
very detailed. So I think, like I said, if you were explaining to someone who was trying to figure out how to do it, they got a lot of information there, and they can call Nicole to ask her more about that. So
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Nicole, is it do I know house hacking you say is number one in regards to getting into residential real estate per se, and not just single family. What other tips, tricks, or what other ways to get into this part of the game with multifamily versus going straight conventional loan? I know you mentioned FHA, NACA. Can you kind of break down FHA a little bit more? What's the percents, and is that another angle of getting into this multifamily?
Yeah, for the residential side, for the under
Yes.
4 units, 2 to 4, yes, you can use FHA
Okay.
and use the 3.5% down. So that's
Okay.
where the number where I bought the
Okay.
$505,000
Got you.
But
property,
that's only
and
if you're
then
gonna stay in it, though. If you're not
if you're
staying in
only
it,
gonna
then
stay in it, you're living in it. But guess what? There's no timeline for how long you have to stay in it. People
okay.
throw out a year because yes, I mean, and I don't think there's any paperwork I signed to say you have to stay in it for a year. Once you close on the loan, you basically
Nobody's
the
checking
bank
on you.
can't dictate anything. They can't dictate anything that you're doing. The biggest hit you're going to get is maybe insurance because you want to make sure your insurance is now a non-owned homeowner policy because
Okay.
if something happens and they find out you don't live there, they won't cover it. So that's
Okay.
one of the things. Like if it's a homeowner policy, then you have to be living there. And the homeowner policy is going to be cheaper than a non-owner occupant policy. That's what
Okay.
it's called.
Okay. Okay.
So in any case, yeah, you basically just want to use that 3.5% so that you can leverage more at a less amount. If you want to go, you can skip residential and go right into the commercial and do 5 to 10 units or something like that if you feel comfortable with that, but you're not going to get 3.5% down. More than likely, you're going to have to do 25% down, maybe partner with somebody, find a business partner. You have to just go out and network, go to these real estate events, get to know who people are. Don't just partner with the first person who says they want to partner. You got to suss people out and kind of vet them because you never know. There's a lot of craziness going out there in the world.
Yeah.
You do not want to be tied to somebody monetarily, even if they're like a good person. If your values aren't in alignment, let's say they want to reposition this property. Reposition just means rehab it. They want to rehab this property and then in 2 years sell it off for the highest price possible. But you want to hold it for long term because you're looking for generational wealth,
Yeah.
then there's going to be a conflict there. So you have to make sure you're in alignment with each other so that when situations happen, then you're going to be on the same page. You don't want one person say, oh, well, I just want to put lipstick on a pig. I just want to put the smallest amount possible in turning this unit versus somebody who wants to do everything correctly and fix something that's behind the walls because of safety concerns. But so that's going to be more money out. But if you don't have the same values, you're not going to want to operate the property the same way. So you want to make sure anybody you potentially partner with can, be in alignment with what you want to do. And as far as yeah, yeah. But and as far as loan financing options for the commercial side,
Mhm.
there are a lot of non-traditional lenders where you don't have to go to a conventional big bank. You can go to I'll just say, I'll keep it simple. You could go to like a community bank or a local lender. They
Okay.
normally will have a little bit more flexibility in their loan terms. It won't be as rigid of a box. You could kind of negotiate or they have a range with which you can work with. So doing that and then finding like maybe private lenders, going to family and friends and letting them know what you're doing and show them the work that you've done so far to build up and to gain your knowledge and experience and see if somebody will trust you partnering with some money. But also, oh, that's on the line advice because you do not want to, okay, everything I'm saying, other things coming to my head. You do not want to create a security with raising capital from friends and family. And the security basically means you're raising money from someone who's not has no decision making and no hands-on involvement with the deal. That's against the law and the Securities and Exchange Commission can come after you. So,
Okay.
if you raise money from friends and family, if you want to be safe,
Gotta
then
go
make
to the
sure
role.
just assign them some kind of role, give them a voting right, give some certain percentage or whatever where there's involvement there. So it's not like a strictly passive income kind
Okay.
of setup
Okay.
for them. You don't want to trudge into that territory if you don't have to. So there's so many different ways I could go with this. And
Yeah.
as you can see, I love to talk. So anyone listening, if you want to talk more about it, please hit me up online. I'm
Yeah.
so happy to
I
talk to
mean that,
anybody.
and that was what I was gonna ask because I think we kind of talked in depth about residential multifamily, and Ralph stated towards the commercial and how you can go into that. And I think that's something, like I mentioned earlier, you are looking to go into, and kind of want to even go in from a mindset because a lot of people, including myself, get stuck with because it's almost like going from, let's say, living in a 2,000 square foot house that you bought for $100,000, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm moving to a 10,000 square foot home with a pool and everything. Like, and you're trying to figure out how do I make this transition? I mean, it's kind of like a similar thing where how did you make that transition in mind? Because you mentioned coaching, and I don't know if that's what helped because some people get it and it still doesn't. But how did you make that transition from residential multifamily to the commercial space where it's like a different ball game?
So yeah, my coaching program would definitely help me getting into and comfortable with the commercial side of things. And if you guys remember, I said at the beginning, my husband took me to that 3-day seminar and I upsold into their coaching program. So that coaching program, that wasn't the best one. But
Okay.
what I can say that it did for me is it exposed me to almost all the strategies from the very beginning. So that's, I started with trying to wholesale, but I knew about multifamily back then. I knew
Okay.
about commercial. I knew about all these other strategies because I had been exposed to that early. I know a lot of people get in, they start with single family because that's all they think is there.
Yeah.
And then they discover multifamily. They're like, oh, why did I waste all my time with single family? Blah, blah, blah. But I knew about it from the beginning. So I
Okay.
always wanted to do it, but I thought it was something that had to come down the road. But when I had my 3 family and it was time to refinance and I knew I was gonna get money out, I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to reinvest this money and I want to buy bigger multifamily, but I know I can't do that on my own and I need to be in a group." So that's when I joined a group that about multifamily, networking within that group, and this it was the summer of COVID actually. I had just started, like, going to my market and doing all the stuff like going on property tours, meeting brokers, meeting property managers, doing all the stuff, driving out there. COVID hit and shut everything down. And so it turned into the summer of Zoom and the summer of like just phone calls.
Yeah.
So I was on phone calls with like everybody in my mentorship group, and someone would say, "Oh, you're looking in this market, you should talk to this person." Then I talked to that person. Then he'd say, "Oh, I like your story, you should talk to this person." So it was like this, it was like phone hot potato. And I was just going around like talking to so many different people. I eventually got introduced to another investor in my market who's not even in the mentorship group, but I would have never met him if I had
If
not
you
been introduced to him
in the
from
network,
somebody in my
yeah.
mentorship group. And so we had a few phone calls. He liked that. He actually was a little bit more experienced than I was, but he liked that I knew things about the market and had certain assumptions just from studying the market and really diving in. That's why I always suggest to people who are newer, pick one market and focus there and learn about that market. A lot of newer investors will try to say, "Oh, I do nationwide," because they don't want to block out opportunities.
Yeah.
But you're not fooling anybody who has an eye, anybody who's a little bit more experienced. They hear that and they automatically have an alert like you're new, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So focus on a market. You will impress people with your specificity of what you're looking for. And when you meet people in that market, they will know that you know what you're talking about. And that's how my partnership was able to come about. And I partnered with him. He already had all the things in place. He had the property management, he had the loan relationship with the lender. He had, the contract, all the people and things. Like I just kind of walked into a team that was kind of pre-established,
Okay.
but because I knew what I was talking about and I pointed out, like, he didn't want to tell me the name of his property manager. But then I named someone who was the best property manager that we had talked to. Me and another friend who were in my group were looking at the same market. We
Yeah.
had split up talking to different vendors. And the best property manager who could answer any questions that we had was this one group. And so I mentioned that group to him and he was like, "Oh, you know about," because he was shocked and he didn't want to tell me his property manager because he didn't want like them to get too stressed in. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
any case, that kind of like impressed him that I could just name them off the top of my head and be right. You know what I mean? Like, so it's things like that you can't know if you're trying to look nationwide. You'll never know the property managers in 50 different cities. You'll never know, who's boots on the ground or what lenders to go to or what
Yeah.
brokers and all that. So yeah, just be very specific. And oh my God, I got so off
No, no,
quote
no,
from
no.
your
I
question.
mean, I
Okay.
think it's been good in terms of getting people. I mean, you're giving people the playbook on the commercial side of things versus now when we were in the residential. And I think them knowing that these, I mean, because there's a lot of education, they're not going to get all the answers on a podcast, but at least they
Yes.
get to understand whatever they don't understand. Like you said, they could always reach out to you and they could find a lot more information about, because you're not going to learn it. It's like you're not going to learn everything in a classroom in one session.
Exactly, man. But that first of all, that was a lot of gems right there, Nicole. And I think for everyone listening in, especially the wives of family women that are aiming to build brands, you just broke down how even choosing your partners have to be strategic and things of that sort. So yeah, I mean, that was a lot of key gems, even to the point where you're breaking down how strategic your partnerships were, because this partner had everything that was necessary to build a successful partnership. And had you have been lackadaisic and I'm just choosing a partner off the whim, you probably wouldn't have been able to move past and achieve more success within this game. So, what is the main characteristic that you say you've honed, refined, and that's what's really fueling your trajectory right now? What's that one characteristic that you want to tell everyone they should have in order to truly become a successful multifamily real estate investor?
Honestly, there's nothing special about me
Right.
outside of I have grit.
Okay.
I don't
You
quit.
got to
I
have
don't
grit.
stop.
Yep. There you go.
So it's the persistency, it's the consistency. Even if you think you're moving slower than you should, you're not accomplishing things as quickly as you should. You don't have time to go dive deep as much as you want, because I know intensity is always spoke about as like a very important metric, which there you do need time to deep dive, right? And to have uninterrupted time to really work on one particular, project or to do or whatever. You can't always just be doing the low value activities.
Yeah.
The high value money making activities take time, but that's hard when I work in a W-2, like I don't have a private office. I work in a clinic. So there's patients coming in and out all the time, right? There's, oh, can you get this for me? Can you do this? Can you do that? Like, so I have breaks in between, but it's never consistent. You never know what one day is going to look like. I don't have time to do a deep dive like at a slow period at work. And even when I get home, the second I walk into the door, the girls are running up to me, "Mommy, want to do this? Or I need this, or I need this," or they're fighting, or they're arguing, or they're hungry when they've been telling daddy this whole time they're not hungry. But when mommy gets home, now you hungry,
I
right?
hear that all
And
the
I'm trying to
time.
get,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to get my own food. I might have calls that I need to get on. I'm trying to like hurry up and finish listening to this one thing or do this other one task that I didn't have time to finish. And so it's basically, even when you feel like it's crazy and you never have that downtime or alone time to really dive deep. The only other time that I've been trying to set aside to do my real estate work is when I put the kids to bed. So I had to make myself consistent with putting them to bed so I could have
Yeah.
a few hours after they go to bed to do work. And guess what? Sometimes I'm too tired and I'm knocked out on the couch sitting at my computer and my head's to the side and I wake up 2 hours later with a kink and I'm like, "Oh my God, I wasted all that time." But at that time, I wake up, it could be 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I'm not going to start doing work now. I'm just going to
Yeah.
go to bed. So that night was wasted. But you have to listen to your body. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get on the computer and I'm just like, oh, and I'm like on it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
my husband will wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, be 2 o'clock, and I'm just getting up from my computer because I've just did all this work. But you
Nice.
never know when that's going to happen.
You're right.
And the thing is
Wow.
giving yourself grace to be able to just roll with it and do as best as you can in that moment. And even if you're not doing as much as you think you can, just don't stop and don't quit. Because when you look back over a year, you'll see, oh my God, I did all of that in a year. I didn't
Right.
even realize, because in the moment I felt like I was just putting out fires.
Yeah.
But just keep
Wow.
pushing forward.
Little drops
Okay.
of water make a bite. That is a great answer. I
Yeah.
think it tells
Definitely.
grit is the word, people,
Yeah.
but I think it has everything in it. And it just, like you said, little drops of water make a mighty ocean. People have to just give themselves grace and keep doing things. Now, another thing that, I mean, obviously you needed, and I want to just say everything you just explained, it make you a super mom. And the funny thing is, I was looking for a word. Is there like a word like a super dad? Like, and I searched this thing online. There's nothing like that. It's just a super mom. So dads don't have the word like super dad. And it's funny, I searched this on
You're right.
Instagram, and believe it or not, it was like I was looking
Crazy.
for like an emoji. There was none that existed that said, because I was trying to make myself into like the super dad, and then I'm like, all I kept finding was super mom. And you just explained to the world what a super mom is in terms of like your work, your real estate, your kids, and juggling all that. And I mean, you have a lot of stuff going on and you're making it happen, but understanding that you have to give yourself grace and you cannot beat yourself down. Because if you do, I think that's the biggest time waster. If you're beating yourself down
Yeah.
mentally, it's draining. I know that. Ralph knows that. You know that. And it's not going to help. It's just not going to get you where you need to. But transitioning to something that I wanted to ask about, because I think people get to understand the basics. You talked about meeting partners and doing all this stuff. I mean, even when you bought your house, how you got money, but now in the commercial real estate side of things, raising money. This is something that I think a lot of people who, I mean, and this we will probably just talk about it at the most basic level. Can you give some insight about how people raise money or what you've done to raise money in terms of buying commercial real estate now where it's not, I mean, even if it's residential, where it's like a 4 unit, but yeah, can you touch on that a little bit more? I know it's loaded, but try to unpack it real quick.
Yeah.
Brief overview.
A lot. Okay. Brief overview. It doesn't work if you don't tell anybody you're doing real estate.
There you
If you
go.
don't show anybody you've been doing the work to learn real estate. If
Okay.
you don't show them that you are just in the field, you're doing things, even if you haven't bought anything yet, you can still show people through your social media, through phone conversations, at dinner, say, oh, I was reading this book. I learned XYZ. I was analyzing this property. I know how to underwrite this, but that wasn't a good deal because they wanted this much and they wanted this, and this was happening over here. So just explaining stuff like that to tell, even when things are not working out and nothing, no movement is happening, but showing people that you're still pushing and learning in the
Yeah.
field,
Okay.
that is going to be the biggest thing to open people up to potentially being able to work with you. The other biggest thing that I learned, I was doing all the things. So all the stuff they tell you with raising capital, have a thought leadership platform, which was I was using social media. I had started my podcast. I was in groups. I was networking with people. I was telling everybody what I was doing. I had my email list. I'd had all the things, right? And I thought, oh, people know me. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be able to raise this money. I got enough connects. I'm doing all the things that they say to do.
Yeah.
Raising money is hard. It is
Okay.
hard. So I was doing all the things just shy of actually asking people if they wanted to invest and what their investment, not capital, but like what their ability was. What were they looking for? What's their investment goals? How much money would you be able to invest? It's hard to start talking about money specifically. And I never crossed that line until I started raising for deals.
Okay.
And then it was hard because people were in different phases of life. Somebody's saving to buy a house. Somebody just bought a house. Somebody's doing this. Somebody's doing that. Or somebody has to move money around or they just put it into another investment. So there's going to be things that are happening in people's lives where their capital is or is not available, regardless of if they like you as a person and they trust you as a person. If they don't have the money at that time, then, that's just you Can you curse on here? Asked out. I don't know.
No,
Block it
you
out.
fine with that.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It
so
deal about
that's
family dynamics. So this is the reality.
there's yes, exactly. So the biggest tip for raising capital is telling people what you're doing,
Okay.
showing people that you're actually learning and building your skill set, and actually having conversations and do the ask before you need it. And you hear that all the time with raising money. And I stopped short just of doing that.
Wow.
So be specific about asking how much you would want to invest, what would you want to invest, what type of projects would you want to invest in, what kind of returns would you be expecting,
Okay.
and have maybe a sample deal. Like look at something that you want to do. Maybe you want to do a 5 unit. So find a 5 unit in the market that you would like to invest in that looks about like if you want to have like a brick something that's in this market that has, this many units or whatever it is in this price range, find an example of that, underwrite it and say, show it to the person like this is the kind of deals that I'm going to be looking for. This one didn't work because the numbers just didn't pencil out. But if
Okay.
this is something that you would be interested in because I'm looking for this kind of return, then let me know. And when I find something, I'll give you the first opportunity. Make it sound as if there's scarcity there. Like you're going to give that person the first opportunity, but if they don't want it, you have somebody else you can ask, but you would prefer to work with them if
Yeah.
they're interested because you like them better. You know what I mean? Like
I like
that's
that.
sales and just putting that out there.
You
So
broke it down. I think
You
there's
they'll
something you
jump on
said.
it when the opportunity comes.
Showing
Yeah.
Sure.
people what you do is an important thing that probably a lot
Agreed.
of people overlook, including myself. And then the ask. So I think to what Rob said, quickly breaking it down, you gave two things which is important in raising capital. You got to show people what you do, how you do it, and you got to ask. It's like sales. If you don't ask, you're not making the sale. So
Right.
that's a good one. So
Right.
But
Any
asking
love that.
before you need it. Don't wait
Yeah.
till you need it because you won't have the money.
Definitely.
They say if you find a good deal, the money will come. That is not true.
Right.
Yep.
And that goes, I've always heard that in business as well, too, in regards to business credit. Grab all your business credit now versus when you're going to need it. You rather have it and not need it versus need it and not have it. So that's a key
Yep.
gem
Exactly.
right there. Definitely thank you. So I know for a fact, Seth, we're going to get bombarded. Everyone wants to know much about Nicole. Any upcoming projects, any current projects you're working on, any upcoming projects that people should be looking forward to?
Ooh, I'll be speaking at a conference, but it's in Atlanta
Hey.
at the beginning of August. So I don't even know when this is going to
Okay.
air. So it might be after. But otherwise, the main other project I'm working on is I'm really working on the growth of two things right now. The growth of my
Okay.
own podcast, Share the Wealth Show, which is helping to expose people to other wealth building possibilities and give you a holistic view of wealth. So not just like how to invest in things, but like how to protect it after. So our tagline is helping minorities build, grow, and protect their wealth. Because I think generational wealth is a catchphrase that a lot of people say, but nobody actually knows how to do, or is no one
Yeah.
actually doing. Like you make all the money, but just because you make money don't mean you're making it generational because you don't have the assets in place on the back end to protect it if something happens to you. That's the generational part.
Yeah.
So growing my podcast and growing my coaching, my mentorship business.
Okay.
So I have a group that I've started earlier. Now I'm opening it back up to a new cohort and I'm, fielding calls now. We're getting on discovery calls and figuring out if there's a good fit there. It's called the Microfamily Mavericks because I am firmly in belief that starting small is the best way to get started. And there's a lot of people out there who say go big or go home. And you basically, you can start with a 100-unit building, blah, blah, blah. But like, come on. It's not really as simple as that. This could take me on a whole other diatribe, which I'm
Yeah.
not going to go there.
Right.
But starting small, even if it's a house hack on the residential side or starting 5 to 10 units, something like that's digestible, it's still going big for you at this point if you haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
That's still a big move. Anything over a single family is big for most people, right?
Of course.
So starting there and then using that to do the whole refi and roll strategy, which is refinancing your equity and putting that into purchasing another property. And that's how you can slowly and sustainably grow your portfolio and build wealth and make it generational. So they all kind of tie in together.
Okay,
Cool,
no
man.
doubt.
So people
working.
Share the Wealth podcast, Microfamily Maverick. these are two ways you could check out the podcast. And then obviously from there, you could be able to connect with Nicole that way. So, I mean, that's good information. Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, Nicole, where else can they find you online? Are you on IG, Facebook? Where can they interact with you?
Yes. So Instagram, Facebook, but my primary platform is LinkedIn.
Okay.
So, but I'm active on all three. If you message me at any of the places, I will, respond, or just even going to my website and putting in a request, a contact form there. It's noirvestholdings.com. I can give you that link as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just send in a message. NOIR.
Okay, Noir, got it.
VEST. Yeah, holdings.com.
Okay. There you go.
You can find it in the show notes, people, so that way you know where to find Nicole
course.
exactly.
Stuff. All right, that's on you, man.
Cool. Well, I mean, before you go, I had 3 questions we like to ask everyone who comes on the show, and everybody gets different answers. So I'm going to just shoot, and you're going to give me some quick answers. First one is, you meet an entrepreneur. What is the first piece of advice you give them?
If I meet an entrepreneur,
yeah, if you meet an entrepreneur, like
a new entrepreneur,
and they're talking to you, like a new one, and they're just talking to you, and they just well, what's the first piece of advice you'd give them, whether they ask for it or not? Like,
simplify your offer.
Okay.
Bass says she got to elaborate on that one.
A little bit, yeah. What do you mean by that?
Please.
In what context? I guess.
In what context? Yeah, exactly.
In anyone, yeah.
Y'all drew me back in. I was trying to keep it short. You drew me back
I wanted to keep it short too, but I'm like, in what context?
Yeah, come on. In what context? Yeah.
So, I mean, because it could be anything. If I'm selling T-shirts, I have to simplify what it is to. So, yeah, just give us one example of what someone can do, especially in your real estate world. Like,
Yeah. So simplifying the offer basically, and I wasn't thinking about in real estate because the offer is just a rent, it's a place to live, right?
Yeah.
That's a rental. So I'm thinking about just entrepreneur and in any other context because, I'm doing a lot of other things. I know you guys are doing things outside of real estate, but a lot of people think they need to start with 5 different offerings to give people y'all have this product over here, I have this product over here, I have this product. Like, let's say you're starting a face care line and you want to have all these different creams and scrubs and all these different scents to choose from and all this stuff, but hone in on one, go deep. I guess that's a better answer. Just dive deep in one area first.
Okay.
So that's where most wealth is made, when you dive deep in one avenue, in one lane. Once you get to become an expert level at that, then you can think about diversifying. And that's in any market, any industry that you're a part of, whatever you're doing. And the diversification is where you start getting the wealth protection. But at the very beginning, you're trying to have capital growth. You're a little bit more risk tolerant because you're trying to build capital, which requires risk. Then after you build that and you dove deep, now you can step back and diversify into a couple other buckets for asset protection.
Okay, I like that. Cool. Next question. What's a digital resource that helps you greatly?
Jeez Louise, crap. Right now, a digital one that helps me a lot is I use HubSpot as a CRM.
Okay.
So that's to send emails, stay in contact with people, keep notes about, conversations I've had with, various people as well. So that's kind of, I guess, a big one right now. It's hard for me because I'm in the middle of learning about systems. And so I'm learning about all these other digital resources and softwares. And so I have a lot floating around in my head right now.
I know. We just need to pick one out of you. So cool.
Yes.
Last question. What advice would you give to a new mother and a wife?
Come on. I thought y'all wanted short answers, man.
I know it's difficult to give a short answer on it, but hey, if somebody came up to you or based on everything they hear, what advice would you give them?
As a new mother, there's no rule book for mothering. Don't let somebody else's opinions dictate what you feel like you should do as a mother for your child. You don't have to do what your mother did, what your mother-in-law did, what your baby's best friend, whoever over here, your aunt, uncle did. Don't listen to anybody else. They can give you good advice, but then take that advice and then take what you want and leave what you don't.
Okay.
Don't feel like you have to
Okay.
conform to everybody else's parenting style.
Love that.
As a wife, once the kid is this with or without kids? Because it's two
Hey, it
different.
doesn't matter because I mean they're
Uh,
probably going to have kids with their family. So yeah,
right.
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Just make sure you and your husband have the same values,
Okay.
right? And you, because a lot of people just are so far in love when they decide to get married that you've had surface level conversations, but not really deep, like day to day life conversations. And you're both going to change as people as you grow. So, and I think that might be where divorce ends up being
Yeah.
a big topic, or a big, like, just like, not issue, but a big occurrence in this country, is that people are at this level when they get married, and then you start growing, and you're growing at either at different speeds or in different directions. So you have to have those conversations at the very beginning, because the thing is, you don't know the future. And
Yeah.
you don't know how you're going to grow, how fast you're going to grow, what direction you're going to go into. But as long as the core of you two are have the base level kind of family oriented, willing to work through pains and trials, then I think you can weather any growth storms that kind of separate you, but make sure you always kind of are in alignment. If you have that fundamental, like, foundation of this is for the family,
Hmm.
right? Then no matter what you're doing separately, that's going to still bring you together, and you'll understand the actions of each other, because you're, at the end of the day, you're all doing it for the family. And when you have kids, a lot of stuff goes out the window because you're focused on raising 2 little humans.
Yep.
Oh my god, I'm talking to myself. You're focused on raising little humans, no matter how many there are,
Yeah.
and a lot of time that closeness with your spouse can kinda dissipate, because you're working, you're doing childhood, you're doing household, you're cleaning, all this stuff, and it just takes a lot out of you. So take a time to just have a date night and go to dinner, once a month, or just something to get out the house and reconnect, I think is good advice.
Man, you
No.
don't even understand how great. Like, I mean, I'm listening to this stuff, and it's funny. I was telling Rob that when we interview people, I'm listening because I'm listening to get advice from the person we're asking
Yes.
questions to. Because I'm just like, that's a good one. I could actually implement that in my life. So thank you very much. Hope a lot of people out there got a lot of gems from you. I guess with regards to, I mean, initially family, we went into entrepreneurship, the real estate piece of it. You gave a lot of great information. So thank you very much, Nicole. We appreciate your
Definitely.
time, and like any parting words from Ralph, but this has been good stuff.
Yeah, no, this has definitely been great for all the listeners. I hope you guys truly can appreciate hearing this advising and hearing this story from the other side. I can tell you, as family men, building this branch is great and refreshing to hear this from a family woman. And it kind of reinforces a lot of things. And for all the women listening in, I hope you can kind of see what type of mentality, and also see that it's possible to
Yes.
do this, because someone like Nicole can make it happen with 2 children, a husband, and house hacked in the very beginning with the
Multiple
family.
business
Right,
brands
multiple,
and things,
exactly.
or
So
at least things, multiple things
exactly,
going on in her
multiple
life, and
things.
she's making it happen. No excuses. So come on,
Right,
people,
exactly.
let's
So
go.
kudos, man. This has been a great episode. Family Man Building the Brand. Wherever you're listening right now, please make sure to rate us, subscribe, give us some feedback. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Nicole. This has been a great episode, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks,
Thank
Nicole.
you so much for having me. I
Of
really
course.
appreciate it. This was great. I loved
Of
it.
course.
Awesome.